When something goes in, something's got to come out, and that is the suspension on our 1964 Falcon hardtop. It's got to go. We're putting an RRS suspension in this car, so this week we're going to show you how to take the suspension out with the least amount of effort. Still going to be some effort, just letting you know. All right, so the first thing I'm going to do is take the outer tie rod in off of the spindle, because that's going to be the easiest thing to do at this point. Now, we are working on a lift, but all this stuff can be done on the floor. It's a little harder to do on the floor, but you can actually gain access. So I'm going to take the cotter pin out, and I'm going to require a couple of tools to do that. I've got a pair of needle nose pliers. I'm going to take the cotter pin that's bent over the top and try to flatten it out a little bit. Get lucky the top will break off like that one just did. And I'm going to take my removal tool and try to get in there and pull that out. And it is not wanting to come out. This stuff may have been in here since brand new, I don't know. Uh-oh. Well, that's not good. Welcome to the worst of all possible scenarios. We got a cotter pin that's stuck, and I can't get the top piece to come out. It's probably going to require me to go grab a locking plier. Oh, that was close. Got one section of it out. Now I got to try to get this other smaller piece out. There you go. All that work for one bloody cotter pin. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen up my nut here, 3/4. I am not going to take the nut completely off of here when I go to use my pickle fork. It's really called a tie rod separator, but I call them pickle forks. Just to see if we can get a little bit of magic. Nope. No magic to be had. There you go. All right, tie rod separator was successful. Now you may wonder why I do this first, and that's because with all my tension on the wheel and everything sitting on the ground, it makes it a lot easier to remove the tie rod in. And yes, you could have come in at it from the back side. We just did it this way. I could have done that on the ground. I have done this on the ground. That is mostly due to the tie rod sitting a little funny because of the wheel dropped out. Realistically, if we weren't putting a rack and pinion in this thing down the road, I would probably go in and redo this entire drag link assembly. We did a video at Man It Mechanic. You can take a look at that here, and that'll show you putting in a different style drag link assembly on a car. I'm going to use Big Bertha here to remove the nut from the strut rod. I always do the strut rods first, sitting on the ground, because when you put it up in the air, the strut rod's going to have an angle on it. It's going to be a real bear to get off. That's it. Strut rod is off. I'll get that out later. I'll probably just let the suspension pop those loose because it may be a bear to get them off right now. So now what I'm going to do is I've got everything on this end done. I am not going to be going in and taking the front suspension off in pieces like I normally would do if I'm doing a rebuild. The whole front end's coming out as a unit. So in other words, upper and lower control arms, spindle, brakes, all that will remain attached to each other to pull everything out. So what I'm going to do next is I'm going to put it up in the air and take the wheel and tire off of it, and then start getting everything ready to pull everything out. All right, before we lift this thing up in the air, I need to take, well, I don't need to, but I want to take my sway bar end link loose. Again, anything that you can do with it on the tires makes this work out a lot better. Okay, that's a 1/2 inch on this particular sway bar end link set, 1/2 inch on top, 9/16 on the bottom. And we have a little dabadooya of penetrating oil on there just to make things a little bit better. Anytime you're working with an old car like this, everything's going to be just nasty and dirty underneath the car. I'm going to go ahead and pull these out. And we will be replacing all of this because it's in pretty bad shape. The parts aren't, but the rubbers definitely are. All right, now I'm just taking the shock absorbers are going to have to come out whenever you're using the tool we're using to take the springs out. So what I want to do is put a locking plier on here with a 9/16 wrench. I like the ratcheting wrenches from Gear Wrench because this is nice to be able to do this. I already pre-loosened it. All right, I'm going to take off the shock top. Sometimes these can actually spin on you. These will also not be used when we're doing the RRS. Now I will retain this for the removal of the spring. I have a block of wood that I sat in here before I drooped the suspension out. I do that to keep the suspension from going into full and complete droop. All right, so I'm going to take the shock out. Sometimes you may need a little bit of penetrating oil on them to get them to come loose. This one luckily is doing fine. All right. Obviously we won't be reusing these shocks. This is a 1/2 inch on these shocks. Some shocks are different. I'm not going to tell you that it's always going to be that way. Yes, you can't see it. The one I'm doing back here is a same thing. It's on the back side of the shock. All right, this is our Max Fabrication spring compressor. I really like this spring compressor for Mustang. It even works for Novas. Mustang, Falcon, Fairlanes, Novas. This is a great little spring compressor because it actually mounts to the spring perch down here. I'll show you that right now. System works pretty easily. You pull the spring up. All in all, way easier than doing the old school method with the other clamp style compressor. Now you notice that I've got the blocks of wood in here. That's to keep this thing from going all the way over where the spring's going to push this rod assembly out against the outer part of the shock tower. You'll see once we get up on top what I'm talking about. All right, with the Max setup, what you'll want to do on a Falcon is you use your shock tower cap. If you're doing it on a Mustang, you'll use this piece here. He also has an optional bearing assembly that you can get with these as well. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to just start turning this in. I want to make sure I keep it off the edge because sometimes that can kind of be a problem with the Falcon stuff. All right, now I'm going to go down here and undo the 2 bolts on the spring perch. They're 9/16. Now we have the control arms dropped all the way down. We have the spring loose, so now all we need to do is take tension off the spring and we can pull the whole thing out of there pretty easily. Doesn't require a lot most times to do this. And this will loose the spring. The cool thing about this tool is there's plenty of room on the system to get it to come loose. Want to make sure that the spring is not colliding with the upper control arm. Now you'll notice that there is no tension on this spring now, and it's always been captive by the shaft and the nut assembly, so you don't have to worry about anything exploding out of here. Even with all the rough handling I was doing with the lady's foot and all that, if you want, you could probably compress the spring all the way up and take the control arm out. I'm a little hinky on doing that. I kind of like having that control arm there as something that'll at least catch things. But it's not going to come apart with it set up the way it is. Get this the rest of the way out, and we can take our control arms off. Spring is out. All right, I'm going to take these two bolts for the strut rod out just so that this stuff can kind of separate when I pull the lower control arm off. And it's just going to hang down until I get the upper control arm unbolted. You can then do the upper control arm first if you want. So the bolts are a 11/16 on the bottom and a 5/8 on top. And they stuck one in my wrench. It's now loose, so grab my hammer. I think, yeah, we're good. It's just stuck up at the top up here. Now I can go in and take the lower control arm off at the frame. All right, I'm going to go in and remove the lower control arm. I've got a 3/4 inch wrench that I'm going to let the chassis take care of if I need to undo this nut. Ford practice states that the bolt goes through this way with the nut on the back, which is how we'll finish this thing up when we put the RRS front end in it. I hit this with some penetrating oil, but there's still a lot of trash on the threads. Hot nuts. Okay. Sometimes the biggest part of this is trying to get the bolt and nut assembly out. You just need to grab your purse. My lady's foot, see if I can get it to come the rest of the way out. Right now it's just resting on that lower control arm, so that's one reason it's really a pain to get out. I wonder if I can get it to come with this thing. Sometimes you can actually screw the bolt out of the frame rail. It's not wanting to do that. Oh, there we go. Don't lose this. You'll need it again. And lady's foot to pry the control arm out of its mount. It's going to want to swing towards you when it comes out. Here we go. Now, to do the hardest ones, which are the bolts that are up top in the shock tower. All right, make sure that when you're doing this, you pull the brake line out somewhere along the course of this. I do it when I get to this point because it's just easier to reach. You don't have calipers and all that other kind of stuff kind of in your way. This gives you a nice clear shot at getting the brake line removed. So I've got that done now. Now I'm going to go in and take the upper control arm out. I am going to be using a ratcheting wrench on this because, quite frankly, this sucks. Trying to get a regular combination down in there is bad. I would recommend getting a ratcheting 3/4 to do this because it just makes life a lot easier. This one I'm going to take completely off. The other one I'm not going to take off completely right away. Put your finger down there on the bolt side of it so that you can make sure that it's not just spinning that, because that can happen sometimes with this stuff as well. Okay, we had to put a 3/4 inch wrench on the other side of this because it started to spin. All right, got that one almost completely off. Well, actually, it's all the way off. There's also usually a washer there. Dropping the washer. Placing the other combination wrench on the bolt side, just in case I need it. All right, last one off for the front suspension on the passenger side. Hopefully it doesn't drop off on my foot because I've now removed both nuts. All right, the moment of truth, I'm going to go ahead and pull this entire assembly off of the car. Now this is going to be heavy. Yeah, everything came out and didn't fall apart. That's the shims hitting the floor. And then pull it all the way out here. Now we got to get the RRS stuff in. All right, that's it. We've taken the front suspension out of the car. We are now about to start putting the RRS stuff in the car. We wanted to break this into 2 episodes so that you guys would be able to say, okay, this is the removal and this is the installation. Making it a little easier if you've already got the suspension out of the car to see how this stuff goes in. It is a really nice looking kit. You're going to be really excited to see this next week. It is very nice bling. It's almost a shame to put it inside of a fender. But inside of a fender it must go. Speaking of must going, I'm not going to say you must go, but it would be nice for you to go out and support us on the Patreon account. At the $10 a month level, you get monthly meetings with me. The list of names that has been flying by me over here, either in front of my face or on this side of my face, those are the guys who put their money where their mouth is, and they are supporting us on a financial basis monthly. You do not have to do Patreon to watch this show, and I am not trying to guilt you into doing Patreon either. It is just a nice way to be able to say, hey, you've done some stuff for me, you've saved me some money with my cars, I'm going to help you out on a monthly basis. Just how it goes. Also, subscribe to the channel. We're on our march to 100,000 subscribers. We are looking for that PDF file that the guys at YouTube will probably send us of the plaque that we're supposed to get at 100,000. I don't even know if we'll get a PDF. We'll probably get a JPEG, and then we'll have to make like a printout file for it, put it on the wall. So that's how that's going to go. And you may be wondering where Cam is. Well, we finished shooting this stuff on a weekday, so Cam is not here during the weekdays. He only comes in on the weekends to work with us, so that's why he's not here today. But do me a favor. Be kind to each other. Love on each other. Treat each other nice. You guys have a great week, and we'll see you next time on Autorestomod. Now, as hard as all that was, the RRS stuff theoretically should go like minch. It should be easy. Probably the easiest thing we do, because there's no spring compressors involved. It's all brand new shiny parts. What can go wrong, right? Right? I better not say that. Maybe I should just say break a leg. That's what they do in Hollywood or in the theater or somewhere.